When was the last time you did a drum clinic in the Bay Area?
In the Bay Area, I don't think I've done one in the Bay Area.
Wow. So this is your debut clinic in the Bay Area. That's pretty cool.
I think it is.
All right. I was wondering what attendees might expect to see and hear during your clinic. What kind of presentation are you thinking of doing?
I love to play, of course. I like to play a lot. I also like to talk about certain aspects of the drums, anywhere from sitting and posture to technique to tuning to history and the lineage of how the drum, in terms of the way that it's played now in this time period, how that lineage happened. There are certain drummers that I like to talk about. I love to talk about the difference in the approaches of different styles of music, like styles that I particularly like a lot, which are jazz and rock and funk. I like to talk about different approaches. I like to talk about dynamics. And, mostly I like to talk about the heart that needs to go into whatever it is you're playing and whatever it is you're doing. Because none of that matters unless you have a heart and a feel and a love for what you're doing, because it comes through and people feel that.
I couldn't agree with you more. It's funny, I think when I was a kid, just learning to play drums, you had stick control, you had a couple books. You didn't have videos, you didn't have the internet. Obviously you could study with drum teachers, but these days there's such a wealth of information for young students. And yet I think that some of them end up really focused on technique and don't tap into that heart that you're talking about. And it's so important to be able to play from your soul, from your guts.
That's right. That's what makes music happen. That's what makes life happen. That's what makes us breathe. That's what makes our hearts pump. That's what the ticker is behind every activity. That's what it should be. And when we don't do that as drummers, as musicians, especially as drummers, because it's very easy to learn how to play something super fast, and then you after a period of time, you get a command of that, and then you're able to do something really fast. But one, it may or may not be musical, and two, it may or may not have any kind of feel. It may not feel good, So I think you're right, because in terms of teaching, that's something that, you're not really going to learn from a book. People can talk about it, but you have to experience playing. You have to, have a love for the drums and a love for life in order for that to come through. And it comes through. Sometimes you hear music and it sounds really cold and calculated. I was having a conversation earlier today about with my husband and a friend about electronica, technical music, where you just hear this, like house music, and you hear boom, 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 and it's music that can, for some, ignite them to dance, for others, lull them to sleep because they get bored with it, But to me, that music, in general, doesn't have any kind of real feel. It's all computerized music, and it's all played to a grid, and it's played perfectly, but without any feel, perfectly without any art, and to me that's boring.
It brings to mind like two examples, really different examples. It's like what you're talking about, is really demonstrated, like when Miles Davis can play one note and totally move you.
Yes.
He's not dazzling you with technique and how high he can play. He just chose exactly the right note for exactly the right moment. And,
Right.
and the other example that comes to mind when you talk about feel is why do I love Charlie Watts so much? Technically, you could say, well, he's not necessarily, you compare him to Vinnie Colaiuta or, so many other drummers, you say, well, he's not as good as they are. And yet, he speeds up, he does all these things that are supposed to be wrong, but he grooves so deeply, And in that case, it's all about feel.
It feels good, and it works with that band.
Right.
It works with the musicians that he's playing with. It works with that music, and he's got, he's got a sound. So his sound, your sound is your signature. So his signature has helped brand that music, like it or not. With one of the really special things about the Jimi Hendrix experience, about his first group, the trio, was the signature that each musician added. Because Jimmy's signature, huge. We understand his historical lineage in terms of coming from the blues and all the great things that he added and edited to become and to reinvent himself to who he was, who he became. You have Noel Redding, who was a guitar player, so his signature was different than most bass players, and that added something special. And then you have Mitch Mitchell, whose signature was really a key in defining the sound of that group, because he loved jazz drummers. In my estimation, and people who know him know that he was trying to play like two drummers, Tony Williams and Elvin Jones, and he added that to the rock stylings that they were playing in Jimi Hendrix's group, and it became a whole separate kaleidoscope of sound from anything that was on the scene at that time. So the signature, anybody's signature, makes a real big difference.